All right, so we're gonna go over some product highlights, some product basics. Kind of like we were saying earlier, this is just to give you kind of a high level view of the stuff that we do the most in terms of products. I'm not gonna go super deep, but just maybe there'll be a couple things you didn't know, or some more reason why we go with the carriers that we go with. So I'm gonna start first with Americo. Couple reasons why we write Americo. Obviously it can be some of the best competitive pricing for the client, one of the best plans for client, easy application, simple signature process. They pay, top comp, which means whatever your comp level is, for the most part, that's what you get paid with a lot of the Americo products. They pay fast, and then they have what's called the You First bonus, which once you write at least $50,000 worth of volume with them over a 6 month period, everything on top of that, you get a 10% bonus on what you write. So tons of reasons why to write Americo, even on top of that, but those are just some of the highlights. So the main products that we write with Americo are their whole life, so Americo Eagle Select, and then their IUL, right? So when you like see a carrier and then you see a list of products, it can feel overwhelming. Like I totally get it. Like, oh, dude, which one do you guys go with? You guys write all of these? For the most part, every single carrier, we really only write one or two consistently. And so with Americo, it's the Eagle Select and then the IUL. So Eagle Select is a whole life plan, for ages 40 to 85. Coverage amounts are 5,000 to 40,000. And one of the a couple things to know about Americo is it has two underwriting classes. Okay. Eagle Select 1 and Eagle Select 2. When you get a quote, right? When you're on Americo's like main quote page, it'll only tell you the rate for Eagle Select 1. Okay, so you got to be careful, and that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. A huge reason why we start the application a lot of times just to get like a what we call like an underwriting decision, or like a pre-approval. And again, we don't tell them like, hey, you were approved. It's just for us to know before I show them numbers, we should be good to go with the Eagle Select 1. Or it'll tell you, no, actually it will get sent to Eagle Select 2, right? Which will be a higher rate than Eagle Select 1. So if it gets sent to Eagle Select 2 based on their health, then okay, cool. I'm going to show them numbers based off Eagle Select 2. But each of those, are, obviously permanent because of whole life, level premium plans where price doesn't change, coverage doesn't change, and both of those immediate coverage. If it ever goes to Eagle Select 3, that's a graded plan. 9.9 times out of 10, you're not ever going to write that. So I really wouldn't worry about that. If it gets sent to Eagle Select 3, I would basically just view that as a decline and pivot to a different carrier. But yeah, so instant underwriting decision. Halfway through, it'll check the MIB to give us like a tentative underwriting decision. Oh, and then just real quick, to get the rate of the Eagle Select 2, like if you want to know what the rate is before you even start the application, when you're in the quote page, you just need to click on Open Report, and it'll pop up like a PDF. Okay, and it'll show you the Eagle Select 1 and the Eagle Select 2 rate. So a lot of times if I give somebody a range, I'll give them that 1 and 2 range. Like, hey, it should be somewhere between, 50 to 75 a month. So again, it doesn't show rate 2 on the quote page. You have to click.
Can you
Yeah,
tell
Dom,
how
I
that
can
pops up?
I can show it. Let me see here. Say that again, Red?
I was saying where you can see the second rate. Can you show like a screen share, like where to find that?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing
I've
right
been
now.
told before, for some reason I just couldn't find it.
Got to create a report at the bottom of the screen and then click open
All right,
report.
y'all can see this? Red, you can see this? I didn't get nobody said anything. All right, cool. 317, 1960. So again, you see all these different products here. We really don't write any of these except for Eagle Select 1 and Instant Decision IUL. So Eagle Select, click that. Let's say they're a male, or we're looking at 10,000. So when you come down here to the bottom, right? Like let's say this guy had picked this plan, then I would fill in his name and hit start eApp. But before that, if I want to see what the Eagle Select 2 rate is, I click on create report and then open report. And then you can see it on Zach. You can still see this?
Yeah,
Okay,
select one, select 2.
perfect. So yeah, so we have select 1. and then we have select two, right? So in this case, like I might be like, all right, Zach, it looks like it should fall somewhere in the ballpark of 55 to like 71 a month. Okay. And like I'm going to have them pick the plan based off of the higher one and it happens to come back lower than great. But yeah, that's how you get that rate um, before you start the application because it'll only show Eagle Select one. Couple quick highlights about Eagle Select. It has, like I said, it has the pre-underwriting decision halfway through where it'll tell you you're good to go with one, two, three, or decline. Um, it has text signature. So Americode is one of the easiest signature options for clients. They're going to get a text message, and all they need to do is read you back the 6-digit code that they receive, right? They might have a link in that text message, but the client does not need to click on the link. When you do the signature part, you go, all right, Zach, you're going to get a text from an 877 number. This is for the initial HIPAA authorization for Americo to check your medical database to determine whether or not they will want to assign you the coverage. All I need you to do is just read me back that little 6-digit code that they provide to you. Okay, so if a client can just get a text with a code on it, it's one of the simplest ways for them to do their authorization stuff. So another huge reason why we write so much Americo. Eagle Select has what's called a quit smoking advantage, right? So what quit smoking advantage means is if somebody is a tobacco user, Americo gives them a chance to pay non-tobacco rates, whereas opposed to every other carrier will charge a higher rate for tobacco users than they do with obviously non-tobacco users. They all have like a special tobacco rate, right? So what the quit smoking advantage plan is the client will pay a non-tobacco rate for the first 3 years of the plan. I'll share my screen again because it'll actually explain it. Share. We're back. So let's say we selected yes for nicotine. So the client, you can see this rate did not change, right? It's still the 54.15 for the 10,000. So the client will pay a non-tobacco rate for the first 3 years of the plan. What's going to happen, Zach, is 3 years from today, you're going to get a mouth swab and a urine, collector in the mail. And as long as that tests negative for nicotine, then you get to keep this non-tobacco rate for the rest of your life. So whereas every other insurance carrier would charge you probably closer to around 96 today, America will give you a non-tobacco rate for the first 3 years. So as long as you think you can have a negative mouth swab and urine sample between today and 3 years from today, then you'll get to keep this non-tobacco rate. If for some reason you either fail to send back the mouth swab and the urine sample or like it tests positive for nicotine, then you'll have the option of either the face amount will increase to 96. This one doesn't show, but basically they'll have the option of the face amount or the price increasing to what a smoker rate would be, or the death benefit would decrease a little bit to keep the price the same. Does that make sense? And so how I explain that is if even like this is the best way for you to go because at the very least you get a chance to get a non-tobacco rate, whereas all other carriers will give you a tobacco rate. And if you're still smoking 3 years from today, all that will happen is your price will go up to be what a tobacco rate would have been. And at the very least, you basically just got a 3-year discount. Does that make sense? And so that's really what sets this apart from any other carrier. So anytime you hear somebody say smoker, assuming they're not super banged up with all their other health stuff, you should automatically be thinking Americo because people love the idea of being able to pay a non-tobacco rate and get a lower rate than where everywhere else will go. So again, either after 3 years, coverage will decrease to keep price the same, or price will increase to keep coverage the same. And they're going to get a letter in the mail a few months before that, like asking them what they want to do, or if they want to send back a mouth swab and a urine sample. And then the only other thing is they don't accept online banks or like Direct Express. So you always want to ask who you bank with. And if a client pays with some sort of online bank or doesn't have like an actual brick and mortar bank account, then you don't want to go with Americo. You want to go with someone else. Any questions about anything Eagle Select before I move on? That all make sense? All right, cool. And then the other one with Americo that we write the most of is their universal life plan. Um, don't let universal life trip you up or confuse you or make you think it's super complicated. I write Americo Universal Life for basically the same reasons that I would the whole life, and I explain it basically the exact same as well. So really all it is a lower cost per coverage way for somebody to set up permanent insurance that maybe is healthy enough to qualify for universal life versus a whole life. Does that make sense? And so it's underwritten more strictly, but you can get, it goes from 50 to 450,000 of coverage, right? So you can see the difference of like instead of going 5 to 40,000, universal life is 50 to 450, right? And the price per coverage will be a lot lower. So you go with it. The reason you would go with writing somebody universal life versus whole life is they're, under the ages of 65 or under and in pretty much perfect health. Like if there's a blood pressure or if there is a cholesterol, very, hit and miss with diabetes, but sometimes with diabetes, you still can give it a shot. But that pretty much has to be it. You still can be good with universal life. And again, I explain it the same way, like, hey, Zach, your coverage is going to be permanent. Price isn't going to change. Coverage isn't going to change. Pays out right away when you die. It will build a little bit of cash value. Nothing to, retire off of, or nothing that's going to excite you too much. But basically, it will kind of act like a savings account and grow over time. And then, except in the state of California, that will also have the living benefits, right? Where you go, you can also have access to your death benefit in the event of heart attack, stroke, cancer, basically terminal, critical, or chronic illness. And so, again, somebody a little bit younger, under 65, in pretty good health, and also it starts at 50,000, right? So they got to be able to afford the 50,000. So that somebody that, has the budget for a little bit more coverage but essentially is still trying to accomplish the same thing where they're just looking to get permanent life insurance. That's the reason I would go with an Americo Universal Life. Does that make sense? So it's just I go, hey, Zach, Universal Life, not that much crazy different than whole life. It's just a little bit of a lower cost per coverage way for you to set up a permanent death benefit for your family. And then, not the selling point, but just kind of an added bonus of the additional cash value and then the living benefits. Does that make sense? Um, but other than that, same with Eagle Select and the text signature, underwriting halfway through and doesn't accept the online banks. Cool. Mutual of Omaha. Same thing. Pretty much the main two plans we write with them. Living Promise is their whole life. And Index Universal Life Express is their universal life. I'm not going to go too crazy deep into it because again, the way that you explain the whole life is it's the same with each carrier, right? I basically say the same thing every time. This coverage is going to be permanent, level, and immediate. Like those are my main 3 points when I'm selling permanent life insurance. So it doesn't change depending on the carrier. They just have some different things that they do and don't accept or reasons you might go with them. So why go with Mutual of Omaha over Americo? From an underwriting standpoint, not that different between Living Promise and like Express Select. So there's not anything crazy different. Sometimes it can be worth a shot, but there's not anything crazy different about what they accept and what Americo accepts. The kind of the main differences is they do accept some online banks. So if you got somebody with the Chime, the Netspend, something like that, that could be a reason you go with Mutual of Omaha. They also do the underwriting check halfway through. And then in terms of the universal life plan, they actually start at 25,000. So like for example, somebody that's in like really good health and we're just here to cover final expenses or permanent life insurance, but there may be, 50 to 65 in their age range. With Americo, a $50,000 universal life plan might be a little bit outside their budget, right? So the cool thing about Mutual of Omaha is they start at 25,000. So that is the main reason I write Mutual of Omaha is my, you know, 40 to 65-year-olds that are in pretty good health, but don't have the budget for a $50,000 Americo Universal Life. So I write them at like somewhere between a 25 to a $45,000 Index Universal Life Express. I mean, that's for me personally, that's the only time I ever really go with Mutual of Omaha. So that's, or the online bank thing. So that's why I just kind of put down for each of these carriers outside of Americo, what are maybe some reasons why you would go with a carrier other than Americo, right? Well, for me, somebody 50 to 65 or 40 to 65, healthy enough to qualify for a universal life plan, but doesn't have the budget for an Americo $50,000. So 25 to 50,000. One of the other main carriers that we write, Corebridge. Okay, so if you ever hear us say go AIG, go Corebridge, 9 times out of 10, what we mean is the guaranteed issue whole life. So Corebridge has two plans, both whole life plans. They have the standard issue whole life, SIWL, and then the guaranteed issue whole life, so the GIWL. What guaranteed issue whole life means is exactly how it sounds, guaranteed acceptance, zero health questions asked. So it's really like a last resort plan for somebody that cannot qualify for anything else, because it's obviously not going to ask any health questions. They're going to get accepted no matter what, as long as they're between the ages of 50 and 80. So again, kind of last resort for super banged up people, current cancer, recent heart attack, stroke, on dialysis, on oxygen, some of those things, those are the reasons why you'd go with that. So how you explain the guaranteed issue whole life is you go, all right, Zach, here's how this plan is going to work. Same thing, your coverage is permanent, your price isn't going to change, your coverage isn't going to change. It is what's called a graded plan, okay? So what graded means is however much coverage we apply for, that's going to be how the size plan that's in effect after you've had it in place for 2 years. If you happen to die between today and 2 years from today, what they're going to pay out to your family is they're going to take everything that you had paid into the plan up until that point and then add 10% interest to it. Okay. So it kind of acts like a guaranteed 10% interest savings account for 2 years. After 2 years, that's when the full coverage will be in effect. So that is exactly how you explain the 2-year wait. You don't go, but unfortunately, you have to wait 2 years for your coverage to start. No, you just explain it as a guaranteed 10% interest savings account. So if they die after having it in for 6 months, Corebridge is going to take, whatever the total is of the monthly payments of those 6 months, add 10% interest, that's what the death benefit will be. And then after the 2 years, that's when the full coverage would be in effect. If the death is by way of natural causes, if for some reason they die by way of an accident within those first 2 years, that would be a reason they'd pay out the full coverage amount. Okay. Corebridge only has email. So, again, if that's the route you got to go, I always check with them first, like, hey, are you like fairly decent at checking and accessing your email? And then so that's the guaranteed issue plan. So again, if you're talking with somebody and it seems like they just got a crazy amount of stuff going on, and somebody on live Zoom just goes, hey, you go Corebridge, that's most of the time what they mean. But Corebridge also does have an SIWL or standard issue whole life. So that is, an immediate death benefit plan. So, again, in some certain health situations, that might be the one to go. And then just a couple other carriers super quick here. The only reason I ever really write Aetna is if somebody has COPD. So Americo Eagle Select is now a little bit more lenient with COPD. So I've actually started going with them a lot more, Eagle Select 2. But Aetna is another carrier that does accept immediate coverage for COPD. So that's really the only reason I go Aetna is outside of if Eagle Select 2 doesn't go through, then I'll go Aetna for immediate coverage for somebody who has COPD. Same thing, they have a tech signature, but they don't do the underwriting decision halfway through. You got to complete the full application. And then again, I kind of wrote down what Jason was saying earlier. AmAm has a voice signature, so American Amicable. That plan is senior choice. So senior choice for people that are 50 to 80 or 85, I believe. And then for somebody under 50, it's called family choice. All right, so senior choice 50 to 80, family choice 0 to 49. So if you have somebody that's in the like 40s and is super banged up with their health, American Amicable, family choice, or Transamerica are kind of the two main plans that you go with. And also American Amicable has that voice signature at the end for somebody that can just not figure out text or emails. Cool. We're brushing up on time. That was kind of just like the main, like high level overview of the main carriers that we use. So before we wrap it up, does anybody have any questions about any of that or anything carrier related at all?
Just one question with the voice signature with American Amicable. When we do the voice signature by phone, are we calling the number and they just have to be on the phone and say what they have to say, or do they have to make the phone call for that?
Yeah, so you'll call it. So American Amicable will give you a number to call. So like on your
Okay.
iPhone, you'll hit add call, call that number, and then you'll merge the call together and
Okay.
then follow the prompt that they say on the phone and then the script that you'll have in front of you on the screen.
Perfect. That's easy enough. Okay.
Super
I'm glad
simple.
we do it and not them. So
Yes.
all right,
Yeah, you don't want
perfect.
to, they will not be able to figure, if they can't figure out text and email, they can't figure out merging calls.
Exactly. All right,
That's you,
thanks.
yep. Anything else? All right, cool. Well, we got this recorded, so we'll get this in the chat. But great seeing you all. Appreciate you all jumping on, and we'll see you on here tomorrow. Peace.